The maid's daughter shocked everyone by climbing onto the Comatose Millionaire's bed. The hospital room was silent, the heartbeat fading into nothing. Anna watched in despair, certain it was the end. Then a little girl in a simple red dress stepped forward. Sophia, only 6, placed her tiny hand on the man's cold palm. In that instant, the monitor changed. Weak pulses turned into steady beats. The doctor rushed in breathless. "This is impossible." And yet a tear slid down Victor's closed eye, a tear no coma patient should shed. Sophia whispered softly, as if speaking to his soul, "Lucia says, you're not alone anymore." Hope filled the room, and for the first time, the man thought lost began to return. The city's dawn arrived in a pale light, not yet warm enough to chase away the morning chill. Inside a worn-out apartment building, Anna Morales' small flat remained silent. The walls were stained with damp patches. The cracked clock on the wall pointed to 5:30 a.m. It was the familiar moment when a single mother's life began like an old machine used to the same rhythm. Yet today, her heart felt uneasy. Anna sat up from the thin mattress, her long brown hair tangled. She carefully adjusted the blanket for her daughter, then stepped onto the cold cement floor. The tiny kitchen had nothing more than a single gas stove and a few chipped pots. She put the kettle on, preparing a simple breakfast. For Anna, every day was a battle to keep warmth in the home, to make sure her 6-year-old daughter never felt the lack of love, even if they lacked everything else. Behind her, a clear little voice rose. "Mom." Anna turned. Sophia was awake, her big dark eyes unusually bright in the morning light. They were not sleepy as a child's eyes should be. In Sophia's gaze, there was always something far beyond her years, a mysterious stillness that made Anna both tender and fearful. "Did you dream again?" Anna whispered, setting a cheap glass of milk in front of her. Sophia nodded, clutching her worn cloth doll tightly. "I saw a man. He was crying, in a very big house, but in his eyes, he was all alone. Beside him was a little blonde girl, but then she disappeared." Anna froze her hand trembling on the metal spoon. This wasn't the first time. Sophia had been telling such strange dreams ever since she could talk. Dreams of people she had never met, of sorrows that didn't belong to her. And most of the time, those dreams came true in ways that made Anna's skin crawl. The man. He had green eyes. Sophia whispered, her gaze fixed on the doll. Anna sat down and wrapped her daughter in her arms. She knew too well who that image pointed to. For 5 years, she had worked as a maid in the Delgado mansion home of Victor Delgado, the cold master with piercing green eyes. A man who lived apart, surrounded by secrets no one dared to mention. Anna's heart beat faster. Perhaps this was no coincidence, but she only stroked her daughter's hair, forcing calm into her voice. "It was just a dream, sweetheart." Sophia lifted her face, staring directly at her mother. "No, I know he's very sad, and soon he's going to need me." Anna swallowed hard. Her daughter's words felt like both a prophecy and a sentence written by fate. The morning went on, repeating its routine. Anna folded her simple clothes, a faded blouse, worn trousers. She dressed Sophia, tied her scuffed little shoes, and fixed the red ribbon in her hair. Though they had little, Anna always tried to keep her daughter neat, teaching her dignity in the smallest of ways. On the crowded bus, Anna held Sophia close. Tired faces pressed together, the air heavy with sweat and the screech of brakes. The city roared, swallowing thousands of workers like her. And yet, amid the chaos, Sophia rested her head on her mother's shoulder and spoke in a light voice. "Mom, something's going to happen today. I can feel it." Anna's arms tightened around her. Sophia's words were never meaningless. That intuition, it was like a silent current passed down through the women of her family, a strange inheritance her grandmother once spoke of. But to Anna, it was more than mystery. It was a burden, because every time Sophia spoke of an approaching event, her mother's heart sank in helplessness. The bus door opened, spilling hurried footsteps onto the pavement. In the distance, the mansions of the wealthy glistened in the early sun. Anna took a deep breath, holding her daughter's hand. She would leave Sophia at kindergarten, then continue alone toward the Delgado estate. But deep inside, the unease clung to her like an invisible red thread, pulling mother and child closer to a story neither could escape. Chapter 1. The Sign in the Dream. That morning, the first light of dawn streamed through the tiny window of the apartment, falling across the stained walls like traces of old memories. The worn-out clock ticked steadily, each beat pressing deeper into the poverty Anna had grown so used to. The small room, barely 20 square meters, was everything at once bedroom, living room, and kitchen, and yet it was their only refuge, the place where Anna and her 6-year-old daughter Sophia clung to each other to survive in a harsh, unforgiving city. Anna moved quietly into the little kitchen, striking a flame on the old gas stove. Her roughened hands carefully set a dented aluminum pot onto the burner. Soon steam began to rise, carrying the familiar scent of oatmeal. Every morning was the same, simple, to the point of monotony, yet it was all she could give her daughter. From the bed, a clear, small voice rose, "Mom." Anna turned her smile gentle. Sophia had sat up her curly hair, a tangle clutching the old cloth doll she never let go of. Her big dark eyes shone strangely wide awake, not at all drowsy, like a child's should be. Anna knew that look too well. It meant something was coming. "You had another dream, didn't you?" Anna asked softly, sitting down beside her. Sophia nodded. Her little voice was quiet, yet each word carved itself into the silence of the room. "I saw a man. He was so sad. He lived in a very big house, but he was always crying alone. Next to him was a blonde little girl, but she faded away, and then she was gone." Anna went still, her heart tightening as though gripped by an invisible hand. This wasn't the first time. Since she was 3 years old, Sophia had spoken of strange dreams, people she had never met, events that had not yet happened until inevitably they did. Trying to keep her voice calm, Anna asked, "Did you see his face clearly?" Sophia closed her eyes, as if searching through memory. He was tall with dark hair, and his eyes, they were green. So green, but they weren't like normal eyes. They were like a deep lake filled with tears. I was afraid, because in my dream, he never stopped crying. Anna felt the blood run cold in her veins. She didn't need another description to know who it was. For 5 years, she had quietly worked inside the Delgado mansion. Every day, she saw Victor Delgado, the 40-year-old master with piercing green eyes. A man who carried himself like stone, proud, untouchable, distant. Yet in her daughter's dream, his eyes were full of tears. Anna swallowed hard, trying to hide the tremor in her voice. Maybe. Maybe it was just a dream, Sophia. But Sophia shook her head, her gaze unusually firm for a child. No, Mom. I know it wasn't just a dream. I could feel his sadness. And the blonde girl, her name was Lucia. Anna's breath caught the spoon nearly slipping from her hand. What did you say? Lucia. Sophia nodded. She smiled so kindly, but her eyes were red from crying. She told me he still blames himself, that he can't forgive himself. Anna's body weakened, her knees trembling. That name, Lucia, had never once been spoken in the Delgado mansion. But once, while cleaning, she had found an old photograph hidden away in a library drawer. It showed a little blonde girl, maybe 4 years old, standing beside a younger Victor. No one in the house ever mentioned the child. Yet Anna could feel it was a wound, a silent scar the family carried. How did you know her name? Anna asked, her voice breaking. Sophia only shrugged, her dark eyes shining like they carried the whole sky. She told me herself in the dream. She said, he needs someone by his side, that he's about to fall into a very long sleep, and if no one wakes him, he'll never come back. Anna trembled. Part of her wanted to dismiss it, to say it was only a child's imagination. But deep down she knew. Her daughter's words never failed. That intuition, it was like a hidden current, passed from her grandmother to her mother, and now to Sophia. Yet in Sophia, it was stronger, stranger, more frightening than ever before. The small room sank into silence. Only the clock ticked. Only the wind pressed through the cracks of the window. Anna pulled her daughter close, her own hands icy cold. She prayed she had misheard, that Sophia's prophecy would not come true this time. But the steady, solemn look in her daughter's eyes shattered any fragile hope. Mom Sophia whispered, pressing her face to her mother's chest, we have to find him. If we don't, it will be too late. Anna closed her eyes tight, a hot tear sliding down her cheek. In that moment, she knew fate had already begun weaving its red threads, pulling her and her daughter into a story neither of them had ever imagined. Chapter 2. The Delgado Mansion. That morning, golden sunlight poured over the wealthy district. Behind ornate iron fences, the mansion stood tall, their gardens trimmed to perfection, like something out of a classical painting. Among them, one stood above the rest, the Delgado Mansion, a 3-story estate crowned with European domes, its white walls gleaming massive glass windows reflecting the brilliance of the sun. The electronic gates slid open, and Anna stepped inside as she did every day. She wore the same simple clothes, carrying the same worn fabric bag. Crossing the marble-paved courtyard, she could feel it again, the sharp divide between her world and theirs. A world of cold luxury where she was nothing more than a shadow. A nameless maid in the eyes of the master. The echo of footsteps rang from the grand staircase. Victor Delgado appeared descending with the phone pressed to his ear. At 40, he was tall, sharply dressed in a tailored gray suit, his black hair neatly combed, his green eyes cold and cutting. His voice carried through the hall, strong and commanding. No. We are not selling for less than 10 million. Tell them that clearly. If they don't agree, then they don't deserve to sit at my table. Anna stepped aside, her head lowered. 5 years had passed, and not once had she heard Victor speak her name. To him, she was no more than furniture, something that existed only to keep the house spotless and orderly. She dusted the shelves, keeping her eyes down. But in her heart, Sophia's words from that morning still echoed. He's very sad, and he will need me. A chill ran through Anna, but she quickly pushed it away. This was work. She could not allow vague thoughts to distract her. By midday, Anna was arranging books in the library when a sharp ring cut through the corridor. The old housekeeper answered. Her usually calm voice shook as she spoke into the phone. Anna glanced over, catching fragments of broken words. Accident. San Rafael. Critical condition. The book slipped from Anna's hands, hitting the floor with a hollow thud. The housekeeper clutched the receiver, her face pale as paper. And in an instant, the mansion erupted into chaos. Ricardo Delgado Victor's younger brother arrived in a sleek black BMW shouting orders into his phone at the lawyer. Valeria Ricardo's wife followed soon after, dressed in an immaculate white dress designer sunglasses, hiding her red swollen eyes. Then Elena, the mother of both men, stepped out of a silver Mercedes. Her usual elegance, her proud demeanor were nowhere to be found. She trembled, her jeweled hands shaking, her sobs breaking through. She needed the support of her private nurse just to stand. My son. Oh God, my son, Elena wailed, her diamond-studded fingers clutching the air. Mother, please calm down. Ricardo gripped her shoulders. They're doing everything they can, but we must prepare for the worst. Anna stood at a distance, frozen, watching it all unfold. This mansion, once a symbol of power, now overflowed with grief, chaos, and fear. And in that moment, the poor maid felt her chest tighten. She had no right to involve herself, yet the pain she witnessed struck her as if it were her own. In that very instant, Anna understood Sophia's intuition had not been wrong. Fate had truly begun to move. The man who once seemed untouchable now lay powerless in a hospital bed. And this powerful family had been thrown into a storm unlike any they had ever known. Anna sat quietly in the vast empty kitchen, her hands clasped tightly together. Around her, Elena's sobs, hurried footsteps, and the constant ringing of telephones merged into one mournful symphony. She didn't know why, but her heart ached with every beat, as though the tragedy had struck her own family. Chapter 3. The Child's Calling. Evening draped the city in the faded gold of twilight. The streets were jammed with traffic car horns, blaring as though they could tear apart the suffocating air. Anna moved with the crowd, clutching the strap of her bag, her eyes weary after a day of turmoil at the Delgado mansion. When the kindergarten doors closed behind her, Sophia came running, throwing her little arms around her mother, her plain red dress fluttering among the uniforms of other children. Anna held her tight, breathing deeply, finding peace in the sun-warmed scent of her daughter's hair. They boarded a crowded bus. Cold neon light washed over Sophia's innocent face, yet her expression was strangely calm, unnervingly serene. She sat by the window, clutching her worn cloth doll, while the city drifted backward outside like a stage shifting scenery for the fate that was drawing near. Mom Sophia said, her voice steady, almost chilling in its calm. He's sleeping in a very deep sleep. He's afraid, and so very lonely. Anna turned sharply, her eyes wide, her heartbeat pounding. Who are you talking about, Sophia? The man in my dream. The one with green eyes. He's trapped in a dark house where no one can hear his cries. But I hear them, and he knows I'm out there. Anna's breath caught. In her mind, she saw it, Victor Delgado, lying helpless in a hospital bed. That very morning, he had descended the staircase, voice commanding, presence untouchable. Now, after the accident, he was trapped between life and death. But Sophia? Anna tried to steady her voice, softening it into a plea. We can't. He's a wealthy man cared for by the best doctors. You and I, we don't belong in that world. Sophia turned to her, her clear eyes reflecting the glow of the passing streetlights. That gaze made Anna shiver. It was deep, unwavering, filled with a strength no child should carry. It's not about belonging to a world, Mom. It's about the heart. When someone is lost in darkness, they need a hand to lead them out. He has called to me, and we must go. The bus jolted to a sudden stop, passengers lurching forward. Anna clutched her daughter, her heart racing wildly. Sophia's words echoed in her mind. He has called to me. We must go. And Anna remembered. When Sophia was just 4, she had dreamed of a neighbor's house engulfed in flames. Weeks later, the fire came, but thanks to the child's warning, the neighborhood evacuated in time. At 5, Sophia whispered that a little boy will fall from the balcony. Days later, Anna witnessed the exact scene. By grace, the child survived, with only minor injuries. All of it returned, now rushing back like a tide. Sophia's soft but steady voice was never just words. It was destiny's echo, a warning whispered from a place Anna could not comprehend. You don't understand, Sophia, Anna said, her voice shaking. We're nobodies. The hospital guards will never let us in. How could I possibly take you to him? Sophia smiled faintly, a child's smile yet threaded with mystery. Lucia will help. She told me. The time has come. Anna froze. That name again, Lucia. The blonde girl from the dreams. The child Sophia had never met yet named with uncanny certainty. Her heart clenched, gripped by an invisible hand. The bus rolled through the bustling streets, pausing at an intersection, awash in neon light. Anna glanced at her daughter, seeing her small shoulders trembling, not from the cold, but from a strange, solemn resolve. And in that moment, Anna understood. This was no longer just the Delgado family story. It was a thread of fate binding her and her daughter to that man's destiny. She closed her eyes and whispered more to herself than to Sophia. We will go. I don't know how, but we will go. Sophia rested her head on her mother's shoulder, her eyes fluttering shut. But just before sleep claimed her, she whispered once more, Mom, don't be afraid. I'll hold his hand, and he won't be alone anymore. Tears welled in Anna's eyes. Amid the roar of engines and the blare of horns, she could hear it clearly, her own heartbeat shifting to a new rhythm. The rhythm of destiny. The rhythm of a journey she could no longer turn away from. Chapter 4. The VIP Door. The next morning, sunlight broke through a pale mist spilling over the busy streets of the city. Anna held tightly to Sophia's small hand as they walked toward the bus stop. But today, they weren't headed to the familiar road that led to the Delgado mansion. Instead, the bus rolled toward the city center, toward San Rafael Hospital, towering like a castle of glass and marble. Sophia sat quietly cradling her cloth doll, her wide eyes fixed on the passing world. There was no fear in them, no hesitation. But Anna's heart pounded in her throat. She knew they were about to step into a world that wasn't theirs, a place reserved for the wealthy and powerful. And she was only a maid, a poor single mother. As they stepped through the revolving glass doors, Anna nearly lost her breath. The hospital lobby stretched out before her, gleaming with white marble walls, crystal chandeliers, leather chairs, and fresh flowers arranged daily. Everything sparkled so pristine, so extravagant, that her humble steps felt utterly out of place. A middle-aged receptionist in a neat suit looked up from the desk. Her sharp eyes swept over mother and child, cold and measuring. "Who are you here to see?" The woman's voice was dry, stripped of welcome. Anna inhaled shakily, her hands trembling. I want to see Mr. Victor Delgado." The receptionist's brow furrowed. "Are you family?" Anna's throat closed. How could she explain that she was nothing more than a nameless maid, and her daughter had dreamed of this man for nights on end? The words stuck in her chest. She lowered her head, her voice barely a whisper. "I've worked for his family for many years." The receptionist stared for a long moment, then reached for the phone. She spoke quietly into the receiver, her eyes still cold, her face as closed as a locked door. Time dragged heavy and suffocating. Anna felt as though she were on trial. Sophia, meanwhile, remained calm, her small hand steady in her mother's, her bright eyes holding a quiet knowing, as though she already understood what the answer would be. At last, the receptionist hung up. She exhaled sharply, her voice edged with reluctance. "VIP suite, 10th floor. 15 minutes. And the child must stay silent." Anna nearly collapsed with relief. She bowed her thanks again and again, quickly guiding Sophia toward the elevators. Only when the steel doors closed did she realize her palms were drenched in sweat. The elevator rose slowly. Each number glowing on the panel tightened the knot in Anna's chest. Sophia's gaze stayed fixed, her eyes calm, as if piercing through the metal walls. "Mom," she whispered, "don't worry. This is exactly where we're meant to be." The doors slid open to reveal a hushed corridor lined with thick carpets. Soft golden lights glowed from wall sconces, wrapping the hallway in a quiet warmth. On a polished brass plaque, the name was engraved clearly: Victor Delgado VIP Suite. Anna stopped, her trembling hand hovering against the door. In that moment, she felt the line drawn sharply between two worlds. On one side, poverty and visibility, the daily struggle of her and her daughter's lives. On the other, power, luxury, and now, suffering. An older nurse opened the door, her eyes flickering with surprise at the sight of Anna and Sophia. But it passed quickly. She gave a small nod. "You may go in, but only for a few minutes." Anna bowed in gratitude, leading Sophia inside. The door closed behind them, and the world around them changed. The room was vast, bathed in bright white light. Machines beeped in steady rhythm. At the center of it all, Victor Delgado lay motionless, his face bruised, his breath labored through a ventilator, his body tangled in wires and tubes. The man who once commanded respect from everyone in the mansion now looked like an empty shell, still and broken on the bed. Anna's chest tightened, torn between fear and an ache she could not name. She had never seen her master so fragile. Sophia slipped free from her hand and stepped closer to the bed. Her eyes glistened under the sterile light as she whispered, her voice soft as a breeze. "He's so afraid, Mom. But he knows. We've come." Anna's breath hitched. In that moment, she understood these 15 minutes would not be just a visit. They would be the beginning of something no doctor, no family member, not even she herself could have imagined. Chapter 5. The first miracle. The VIP room gleamed in silence so quiet that every beep of the monitor could be heard. IV drips ticked steadily cold white light, falling across Victor Delgado's bruised, swollen face. He lay motionless like a wax statue. A man who had once embodied power, now nothing more than a fragile body caught between life and death. Anna stood by the door, her heart pounding so hard it hurt to breathe. Fear and pity tangled inside her. But Sophia, only 6 years old, showed no fear at all. The little girl walked gently toward the bed, as if this place was not foreign, but somewhere she belonged. Sophia, you... Anna's voice trembled, about to stop her. But the clear light in Sophia's eyes stole her words away. Those eyes carried a calm certainty no adult could muster. Sophia pulled a chair close to the bed, climbed up, and sat beside Victor. She set her cloth doll aside, then reached out her tiny hand. Her thin, soft fingers rested on his large, ice-cold hand. And in that moment, a miracle happened. The monitor's rhythm suddenly changed. From weak and broken, Victor's heartbeat grew steady, strong. The green waves on the screen jumped sharply, no longer tired, but alive, insistent, like the knocking of life itself returning. Anna gasped, clutching her chest. "Oh my God!" The nearby nurse froze her eyes wide. She whispered in disbelief, "Dear Lord, what is happening?" Sophia kept her little hand on Victor's, her gaze intent, as if listening to a voice no one else could hear. "He can hear me now," she whispered. "He's afraid, but he knows he isn't alone anymore." The door burst open. A team of doctors rushed in, led by Dr. Gabriel Ramos, the head of neurology, over 30 years of experience handling the most complex cases. He stopped dead at the sight of the monitor. "What on earth is this?" he barked. The nurse's voice shook. Right when the child touched his hand, the readings changed. "Everything stabilized, doctor." Dr. Ramos strode quickly to the screen, bending close. Behind his glasses, his eyes widened. "Impossible. This response hasn't appeared once in a whole week. Why now? Why at this exact moment?" Anna stood frozen, torn between pulling her daughter back or letting the impossible unfold. Her heart ached, divided, fearful that Sophia was stepping into something dangerous, yet overcome with the certainty that her daughter was the key fate itself had sent. Sophia leaned close, her lips near Victor's ear, her voice soft as a lullaby. "Don't be afraid. Darkness is only a dream. Beyond it there is light, waiting for you." Suddenly, Victor's eyelids flickered. Just for a second, but real. A single tear slid down from the corner of his bruised eye, staining the white pillow beneath him. The room went utterly silent. A clipboard clattered to the floor. One nurse stammered, "Coma patients. They can't cry. This is impossible." Dr. Ramos's hands shook as he pulled off his glasses, wiping them before leaning in again. He murmured almost to himself, 30 years of medicine, and I've never seen this. This is beyond science." Anna's tears spilled, her hand covering her mouth. She hardly recognized her own child anymore. The 6-year-old girl in a simple red dress was doing something no one could believe, reaching across the border between life and death, with just a touch. Sophia smiled softly, taking a tissue and gently wiping Victor's tear. "No need to cry anymore," she whispered. "Lucia is fine now. She wants you to know. She forgives you. You don't have to carry that sorrow forever." The name Lucia struck Anna like a blow. How could Sophia know? Lucia was the secret buried deep within the Delgado family, the wound Victor never spoke of. And now, this child was comforting him in the name of the little girl who had been gone for 20 years. The cold white room thickened with astonishment, yet warmth seeped through it too. As if with Victor's heartbeat returning, the entire space had awakened from death itself. Dr. Ramos drew a deep breath, turning to Anna. His voice was firm, urgent. "You're the girl's mother." Anna nodded, tears streaming. "You must bring her back. I need to observe, not just for medicine. No, for something greater than science itself." Anna clutched her daughter tightly, and in that moment, she knew one truth with certainty. From the second Sophia's hand touched Victor Delgado, their lives had been set on a new path, a path with no way back. Chapter 6. The Tear That Couldn't Be Explained. The next morning, San Rafael Hospital buzzed with unusual energy. The normally quiet VIP corridor now held unfamiliar faces, doctors from other departments passing by with flimsy excuses, nurses peeking in with thinly veiled curiosity. The rumor had spread like fire. A 6-year-old girl with nothing more than a touch had sparked a miraculous change in Victor Delgado's coma. Anna gripped Sophia's hand tightly, her heart racing. She hated the prying eyes, hated that her daughter had become a subject of whispers. But Sophia walked calmly, her simple red dress standing out among the white coats, her wide eyes shining with a strange blend of innocence and unfathomable depth. At the VIP suite door, Dr. Ramos was waiting. He had barely slept, spending the night poring over data the machines had recorded. All his life he had trusted numbers above all else. But for the first time in 30 years, he had to admit something was happening beyond the reach of medicine. "Thank you for coming back," he said, his voice hoarse. "Please allow me to observe more closely today." Anna nodded, her hands still trembling. Sophia only smiled gently, bowing politely. The door opened. Cold air from the vent spilled out, mixed with the sterile scent of disinfectant. Victor lay where he had been, his bruised face less swollen now, his breathing steadier through the ventilator. The machines pulsed rhythmically, but the room still carried the heavy weight of fragility. Sophia walked straight to the bed, set her cloth doll on the table, and climbed into the chair beside him. Her little hand found his large, cold one. At once, the monitor spiked. The weak green line surged with strength. A nurse gasped aloud. "It's happening again." Dr. Ramos adjusted his glasses, eyes locked on the screen. But then he leaned closer to Victor for what came next, silenced everyone. Sophia bent near, whispering softly, "You can hear me, can't you? You don't have to be afraid anymore. Lucia is in a beautiful place. She says she forgives you. You don't have to carry this burden forever." At the sound of Lucia's name, something shifted. Victor's face twitched, his brow tightening faintly. And then slowly, undeniably, a single tear slipped from his shut eye. It traced his bruised cheek and fell onto the white pillow, leaving a tiny wet mark that hit the room like thunder. "No way." A nurse stammered, nearly dropping her tray. "Coma patients can't cry. They can't produce tears of emotion." Dr. Ramos stood, frozen lips trembling. He bent closer, his gloved finger catching the tear, lifting it to the light. It was real. A real tear, he whispered, eyes shining. 30 years in medicine, and never have I seen this. This breaks every law of neurology. Anna covered her mouth, tears spilling down her face. She looked at her daughter, then at the man who had been cold as stone, now weeping at a child's whisper, a connection no one could explain. Sophia remained gentle, dabbing away the tear with a tissue. "Don't cry anymore," she said softly, her voice like a breeze. "Lucia wants you to be happy. You've been sad for too long." The room went silent. Only the steady beeping of the machines filled the air. But the silence was no longer empty. It carried rebirth faith and a trembling mix of fear and hope. Dr. Ramos turned to Anna, his eyes grave. "You must tell me everything. Has she done this before?" Anna hesitated. But faced with what had just unfolded, she could not hide. Since she was very little, she's known things no one taught her. She dreamed of accidents of deaths, and they always came true. My mother, my grandmother, they had this gift too. But in Sophia, it's stronger. Sometimes I'm afraid of my own daughter. Ramos nodded his eyes, never leaving Sophia. The doubt was gone. Only reverence and boundless curiosity remained. Sophia spoke on, as if no one else were present. "Lucia says he blames himself. That day, she was sick, but he went out to play. He thinks that's why she died. But it wasn't. She wants him to know. Sometimes things happen and no one is at fault. She still loves him. She's always with him." Victor shuddered faintly. His fingers twitched ever so slightly, as though trying to close around the small hand holding his. The EEG spikes grew sharper, stronger than they had ever been. Dr. Ramos stepped back, pressing a hand to his forehead. This is a neurological response no therapy has ever produced. My God, we're witnessing something beyond reason." Anna clutched her daughter's hand, her heart swelling with awe and dread. She knew from this day forward, Sophia was no longer only her little girl. She had become a bridge between life and death, between science and the unknown. But Anna shivered too, because what happened in this room would not stay contained here. It would spread. It would shake the world. It would make everyone want to touch the secret of a 6-year-old child. And that could be the beginning of a miracle or a tragedy. Chapter 7. Lucia's Secret. That night, the city still blazed with neon billboards and the endless cry of car horns. But inside a tiny apartment on the outskirts, another world existed, silent, cramped, and damp. A weak yellow bulb glowed over the old wooden table, where Anna sat, her trembling hands wrapped around a cup of chamomile tea. For 2 nights in a row, after witnessing the unexplainable at the hospital, she had barely closed her eyes. Her mind spun with wonder, confusion, and fear. Every time she blinked, she saw it again, the tear rolling down Victor's battered face. A tear her daughter had summoned with a name Anna had never dared speak aloud: Lucia. The sound of small footsteps broke the stillness. Sophia padded out of the bedroom, hair tousled, clutching her ragged cloth doll. Her dark eyes glistened in the yellow light. "You're not asleep." Anna tried to keep her voice gentle, though worry trembled beneath it. Sophia climbed onto the chair beside her, her little legs swinging above the floor. She set the doll on the table and looked at her mother with a calmness so deep it was almost chilling. "Mom, I need to tell you about Lucia." Anna flinched, her hands tightening together. Where did you hear that name?" "I've always known," Sophia answered simply without hesitation. "Since I was 3, I dreamed of her. A little girl with golden hair and eyes as blue as the sky. She always smiled, but her eyes were full of sorrow." Anna leaned back, her heart racing. She had never spoken to Sophia about it, never once hinted at the daughter the Delgado family had lost decades ago. And yet here, her 6-year-old sat describing it as though she had seen it herself. Sophia continued, her voice soft but precise, like she was reading from an invisible book. Lucia was very sick. She burned with fever, shivering in her bed. Victor was 12 then. He was afraid, but he left to play soccer with his friends. When he came back, Lucia had been taken to the hospital. She lay in a white bed, gasping for breath. Victor cried, begging God not to take her. But 3 days later, Lucia went to heaven. He screamed it was his fault, that if he had stayed home, she would still be alive. Anna broke down, clutching her head in her trembling hands. "Oh God, Sophia, how do you know this? Who told you?" Sophia tilted her head, her eyes fathomless. "Lucia told me. She comes to me in dreams. She's still around Victor, around that house, but he can't see her. He only sees the darkness. He only hears his own cries. So she asked me to tell him she forgives him, that her death was not his fault." Anna buried her face in her hands, sobbing uncontrollably. She wept not only for Lucia's fate or for Victor's torment. She wept for her daughter, 6 years old, yet carrying a secret far too heavy for such small shoulders. "My baby," Anna whispered through her sobs. "I'm so afraid. Why must you know these things? You're just a child." Sophia laid her little hand on her mother's, tiny but warm. "Mom, I'm not afraid. I know what I must do. Lucia says only those who have suffered can truly understand another's pain. I understand yours, Mom, and I understand his." Those simple words pierced Anna's heart. She remembered the long nights she had endured in silence, swallowing despair after Sophia's father abandoned them. The days she went hungry so her daughter could eat. The tears she hid behind a bathroom door. Yes, Sophia had seen it all, felt it all, even when Anna never spoke of it. And in her daughter's eyes, Anna suddenly saw a power unlike anything else. Not the power of strength nor of knowledge, but of a heart that could feel everything. "Lucia told me," Sophia whispered on, "that he cannot wake. Not until he learns to forgive himself. If he doesn't, the darkness will keep him forever." Anna shivered, torn between awe and dread. Her little girl was speaking truths no doctor could ever capture. Outside the window, the night wind rushed past the towers of the city, carrying its endless hum. But inside the apartment, there was only Anna's sobbing, and Sophia's voice, soft as a breeze, weaving the picture of a secret buried for more than 20 years. Anna wrapped her arms around her child, whispering through broken breaths, "You are the only light leading me out of the dark. But please, don't let that light consume you. I'm so afraid of losing you, Sophia." Sophia nestled into her mother's chest, her little arms hugging tight. "Mom, you won't lose me. I'm here for you, and for him too." In that poor little apartment, mother and daughter held each other close. On one side was a mother's fear. On the other, a child's strange, unwavering faith. And from that moment, Anna knew Lucia's secret was no longer just the Delgado family's burden. It was now bound to her daughter's fate as well. Chapter 8. The Hand That Brought Life. By the third day, San Rafael Hospital had become the center of whispers. The usually quiet VIP hallways were no longer still. Doctors, nurses, even wealthy patients found excuses to pass by the door with Victor Delgado's name on it. The rumor had spread like wildfire. There's a little girl in a red dress, and whenever she touches the patient, the machines come alive. Anna walked through the tide of curious eyes clutching Sophia's hand. Her heart was torn, fear mixed with pride, dread laced with hope. Her daughter was no longer just a nameless child from a shabby apartment. She was becoming the center of something no one could explain. Inside the room, the scene was both familiar and new. Victor still lay there, his complexion less pale now, the bruises on his face fading. The machines beeped in stronger rhythm than they had 2 days before. But the difference lay in the air, because the Delgado family was there. Ricardo, Valeria, and Elena stood silently, their eyes clinging to a fragile thread of hope. Sophia smiled politely. "Good morning." Without hesitation, she placed her doll on the table and climbed onto the chair by Victor's bed. Her small hand sought his large, cold one. At once the monitor leapt into a stronger rhythm, the EEG lines rising boldly. A nurse cried out, "Oh my God, it's happening again." Sophia leaned close, whispering, "You're not lost in the dark anymore. I'm here. And Lucia is here too." Victor's hand trembled. At first it seemed like nothing but a reflex. But then under the crushing silence, his fingers clearly curled, closing gently around the little hand that held his. Anna's breath caught in her chest, her hands clutching her heart. A sob burst from Elena. "Victor, my son." She rushed forward, tears streaking through her makeup. Ricardo stood frozen, and Valeria pressed a hand to her mouth, her eyes filling. Sophia smiled, her eyes shining. "He can hear us now. He's trying to come back." Victor's eyelids flickered violently, not the faint spasms of before, but sharp tremors, as though consciousness itself was fighting to break through. The monitors confirmed it, neurological responses stronger than ever. Dr. Ramos stepped forward, his voice shaking yet steady with professional awe. "Excellent, clear response. This isn't coincidence anymore. This is real progress." He glanced at Sophia, wonder and reverence mingling in his eyes before turning back to the machines. "Never in my career have I seen such rapid recovery brought on simply by the presence of one person." Sophia bent close again, her whisper steady. "Can you hear your mother? She's here calling your name. Ricardo is here too. Everyone is waiting for you." Victor's grip tightened, intentional, now undeniable. Ricardo broke down, clutching his brother's shoulder. "Victor, you can hear me, can't you? I'm sorry. I wasn't there for you enough." Sophia nodded softly, as though listening to a voice only she could hear. "He forgives you. He isn't angry anymore." Anna stood silently in the corner, her heart overflowing. Tears streamed down her face, not only for the miracle unfolding, but for the way the Delgado family now looked at her daughter. In that moment, the barriers of wealth and class of master and servant seemed to vanish. They were only human beings, trembling together before the fragile flame of hope. Victor's eyelids twitched harder, his lips parting slightly. Through the ventilator, a hoarse sound escaped, barely a word, but unmistakable. "Sophia." The room erupted. Elena collapsed to her knees, sobbing uncontrollably. Ricardo clutched his brother's hand, trembling like a child. Valeria wept openly for the first time, stripped of her usual elegance. Anna covered her mouth, sinking into a chair. Her daughter had just awakened the soul of a man thought lost forever. Sophia only smiled, holding Victor's hand tight. "I'm here, and I won't leave until you fully return." In the cold white light of the hospital room, amid the steady beeping of machines, a true miracle had taken root. No longer a coincidence, no longer a desperate hope, but living proof that the touch of a child could call a soul back from the edge of the abyss. Chapter 9. Awakening and Reconciliation. The fourth morning. Sunlight streamed through the glass halls of San Rafael Hospital, making the entire VIP wing shimmer. The air was taut, strung like a violin string ready to snap. The Delgado family had kept vigil all night, exhausted yet unwilling to leave. For they were waiting for a moment they had never dared to believe would come. Victor Delgado, the once unyielding titan of business, lay in his hospital bed, gaunt but changed. The bruises were fading his breath, no longer so labored, and today, with trembling hands and fluttering eyelids, his body signaled the unthinkable, a return from the abyss of coma. Sophia sat at his side, her tiny hands wrapped around his large one. Her eyes held no fear, only a radiant, unwavering faith. Behind her, Anna stood, her heart caught between fear and hope, while Ricardo, Valeria, and Elena encircled the bed, each heartbeat rising and falling with the monitor's rhythm. And then the miracle happened. At last, Victor's heavy eyelids opened. His green eyes, blurred but alive, searched the room. For a fleeting second, confusion crossed his face until his gaze landed on Sophia. The little girl smiled bright as morning. "Good morning, sir. You found the way out of the darkness." Victor's lips trembled. His voice was hoarse, weak from the ventilator that had just been removed, but the words struck like thunder in the silence. "Sophia, thank you." Elena broke into sobs, throwing her arms around her son. "Victor, my son, you've come back to me." Victor turned his tired eyes toward her. Tears welled his voice, cracking. "Mother, I'm sorry. I've been so cold. I've hurt you." Elena pressed her face into his hand, her tears mingling with his. "No, my son. You are everything to me. We've lost so much already. All I need is for you to still be here." Ricardo stepped forward, his hand trembling as it landed on his brother's shoulder. For a long moment the two men stared at each other, eyes heavy with years of distance, resentment, and silence. Then Victor whispered, "I'm sorry, Ricardo, for closing my heart all these years, for never giving you the chance to be close." Ricardo's eyes brimmed. He shook his head. "No, it's me who should apologize. I buried myself and my career in competing with you, while you carried the pain alone. I left you in your loneliness." The brothers embraced their tears, erasing years of tension and pride. Even Valeria, usually so poised and untouchable, quietly brushed away her own tears, her eyes filled with belated remorse. In that moment, Victor turned his gaze toward Anna. She froze in the corner, hardly daring to breathe. "Anna," he whispered. The entire room stirred. In 5 years, he had never once spoken her name. Anna's tears overflowed. "Yes, sir." "Don't call me sir." Victor interrupted, his frail voice, softened with a gentleness no one had ever heard from him. "You are not just a maid. All these years, you were the only one who treated me with kindness. I saw it. I remembered it, even when I never said a word." Anna's body trembled. For years, she had carried her quiet compassion like a secret. And now at last, she knew it had been seen. Victor tightened his grip on Sophia's hand. "And you, my little angel, you pulled me from the edge. You gave me not only my life back, but my family too." Sophia smiled, her voice clear and bright. "I only did what Lucia asked. She wants you to know she's happy and that you deserve to be loved." The room fell into silence. Only soft sobs and the steady beep of the machines filled the air while the morning light spilled through the glass, bathing them all in something that felt like absolution. For the first time in years, the Delgado family embraced in tears. No power, no wealth, no pride. Only kinship, reborn cleansed by truth and healed by love. Anna stood quietly, her hands trembling against her dress. And in that moment, she understood the miracle had not only awakened Victor, it had awakened a family thought broken beyond repair. Chapter 10. Lucia smiled. A year had passed since the miracle at San Rafael Hospital shook so many hearts. The life of Victor Delgado and of his entire powerful family had completely changed. Victor was no longer the cold, closed-off man he once was. After his recovery, he devoted himself to founding the Lucia Foundation, an organization helping poor children with critical illnesses in memory of the little sister whose loss had haunted him for decades. At the opening ceremony, he held Sophia's hand and called her the light that guided my soul. The press covered it everywhere, but Anna simply stood quietly in the background, her heart full of pride. From that day on, Anna was no longer just an invisible maid. She became the foundation's managing director, still simple, still humble, but now her eyes shone brighter, her smile easier. Sophia bloomed like a young tree in sunlight, radiating warmth to everyone whose life she touched. That afternoon, the garden was bathed in golden sunset. Scarlet roses and purple lavender swayed in the breeze. Victor stood beneath a vine-covered arch holding Anna's hand. His face no longer bore scars from that fateful accident, only the gentle green eyes no one had thought they would ever see. Anna. His deep voice trembled, as though confessing for the first time this past year, "You and Sophia have shown me what family truly means. I lived my whole life in the shadow of guilt and loneliness. But the two of you pulled me out, taught me how to love. I don't want us to stop here." Anna's heart raced. Before she could respond, Victor knelt down, opening a small velvet box. Inside was a simple, elegant ring that gleamed in the sunset. Anna Morales. Victor's eyes glistened. "Will you marry me? Will you build a real family with me and with Sophia?" Anna burst into tears, her hands covering her mouth. Years of quiet endurance, of hidden sorrow, of tears shed in silence, all poured out at once. Sophia clapped her hands, her eyes sparkling like stars. "Mom, say yes. I always dreamed of this." Anna laughed through her tears, nodding again and again. "Yes, yes, I will." Victor rose, pulling her into his arms, and beneath the orange sky, they kissed a kiss, simple yet overflowing with truth. Sophia spun in her white dress, tossing handfuls of rose petals into the air, her laughter ringing out like music marking the start of a new life. The wedding came a few weeks later, neither lavish nor grand. Not in a great hall or a towering cathedral, but right there in the garden beneath the vine-covered arch. The guests were few, only those who truly mattered. Elena embraced Anna as though she were her own daughter. Ricardo and Valeria stood hand in hand, smiling their blessings. Sophia, in her little white dress hair, adorned with flowers, scattered petals down the aisle, her face shining brighter than the afternoon sun. When Victor and Anna exchanged vows, tears filled every eye. No one saw it as merely a wedding, but as the culmination of a decades-long healing. After the ceremony, as congratulations filled the air, Sophia stood quietly gazing at the fiery sky. She smiled, whispering softly, so only Anna could hear, "Lucia is smiling now. Mom. She's happy." Anna held her close eyes blurred with tears, looking up at the radiant heavens. And in the breeze, it was as if a child's laughter drifted down pure light and free. The laughter of a little girl, long gone, but at last, at peace. The garden glowed in the fading light. No hospital machines, no tears of despair, only laughter mingling with the sweet scent of flowers. Anna, in her simple white dress, stood beside Victor, their eyes bright with love. They held hands, exchanging vows, not before wealth or grandeur, but before a love tested by tragedy. Beside them, Sophia scattered rose petals, her clear laughter rising like the music of rebirth. Elena, Ricardo, Valeria all wiped away their tears. But this time they were tears of joy. Victor whispered, his gaze fixed on Anna. I've learned that forgiving oneself is the only way back to love. Anna smiled through her tears, whispering back, and love is the only way to truly live. The frame closed on Sophia, her lips forming the words, Lucia is smiling now. A breeze swept through carrying rose petals into the air like a sacred seal of healing. And the audience felt their hearts rise, witnessing a journey from tragedy to joy, from loss to reunion, from despair to healing. Forgiving yourself is the only way back to love. Leave a comment with your city and rate this story from 0 to 10. Subscribe and click the bell to enjoy more CEO healing stories.